Okay, it seems like we're having some weird technical difficulties on my production end, so we're just going to go ahead and get started like this. Hello, welcome everybody to the Central Texas Mycological Society Myco Hangout. Before we get started tonight with our conversation with the POC Fungi Community with special guest Elan Hagens, our one of our leader members has a special announcement for us tonight.
Hey, everybody. So I just wanted to chat real quick about a new initiative that Sam the Fungi came to all of us in the group with earlier this year. And it's something that kind of coalesced around a video presentation that we were working on for the Texas Organic Gardeners and Farmers Conference that has been going on the last couple of months. So we've put together a Mycology in the Garden series, and we're also partnering with our growing mushroom community. There's a couple of farms in Austin now that have a lot of waste material, organic waste, mushroom blocks, spawn blocks that end up going into the waste stream. And so what Sam came to us with was this challenge to try to keep it all out of the waste and put it into the soil. And so we are working to have a couple of different pickup locations around Austin where people can pick up spawn. And then we have this educational program where you can learn how to incorporate it into your gardens or even grow it in grow mushrooms in 5-gallon buckets, a bunch of low tech. You don't need any electricity or fancy equipment to grow some mushrooms in your own space. And so if you're interested in getting your hands on some spawn, just drop your email in the chat and feel free to keep spreading the spores, tell more people about it. And if you are looking for help, if you want help with like getting a mushroom garden started or want some consultation, Sam has also started a business called the Collective Fungi, and I'll drop in the chat, the Instagram. So if you're interested in, getting some help with getting a garden started, if you have a community garden space or a place at your own house, or if you're a farm or a business and need to talk to someone that's an expert, just hit us up. But that's all. Yeah, so Mycology in the Garden.
Okay, cool. Awesome. I'm really, really excited for that initiative. It's going to be super, super cool. So let's get on with tonight's conversation. Yeah. So tonight we're going to be joined by, like I mentioned, the POC Fungi Community, which is an intersectional community of QTBIPOC who are interested in all the intersections of mycology, eco-justice, social justice, access to food and medicine, and the relationship of fungi and cultures to the world. The POCFC is based out of, I should have asked for pronunciation on this. Kumeyaay, oh my God, I'm so white, territory, but considers itself to be a decentralized community. And tonight we're also joined by Elan Hagens. I hope I'm also pronouncing that right. Elan is a veteran mushroom forager based in Oregon and can be found every week at Portland's Farmers Market with wild mushrooms with her company Temptress Truffles. Elan is also working with the Psilocybin Advisory Board in Oregon and recently formed the Fruitingbodies Podcast to discuss things like healing justice and psychedelic news. So if y'all want to kind of expand on that introduction, take it away.
I appreciate you, Philip, and you're forgiven, by the way. My name is Mario. I'm one of the co-founders here of POCFC, the People of Color Fungi Community. We're on Kumeyaay territory, right here, also known as San Diego. I can see, I could drive to the border in 20 minutes, and that has caused interesting just bioregion to have this community spring up, which it's been a learning journey, and it's been a lot of things, but it's been healing as well for our communities, and especially with all that's been happening, and we're about to hit a year of quarantine, and we've been responding in different ways to our community, and really just kind of diving into these philosophies that are coming out of the scene, the fungi scene, the mushroom scenes, and we hear a lot of things about reciprocity and symbiotic relationships and mutual relationships, and we've been just trying to embody that and those ideals, and really just trying to lift each other's voices up and make space for each other. So, in that spirit, we wanted to say thank you, to the Central Texas Mycological Society for the invite, and including us in these conversations, and for the platform that y'all have, and so we're grateful to share in that platform. When I got the invitation, I was working on a few things and realized the date, being the beginning of February, and it is Black History Month. So I thought to really, in the spirit of our community and what we're about, I also consider our community to be a decentralized one. Although we operate out of, Southern California, there are people all across the country who really carry the ideals and the, see what we're doing and really support us in many different ways. So, all of those folks, across Turtle Island, I consider part of this community, people from New York, and including definitely people on the West Coast. And that's without a doubt included Elan and all the work that Elan's been doing for so long, and that I've kind of been admiring for a while, and just have been wanting to, share more about what she's doing. And so, with the really recent legislation and things that have been going on in Oregon, I thought this was the best time to share this platform that I've been afforded, and hand it over to Elan. So, Elan, if you may, please do us the honor and just introduce yourself as well, and tell us about all the stuff that you're doing too. Again, just thanks to everybody for being brave, and all the things that we talk about and aren't always welcomed in every circle. So, I want to say thank you. Y'all are radical in that way, and so in that way, I just want to express my gratitude, and to say that we do come in a humble way. I myself represent my community, but if I make mistakes, because I do make them often, please don't take it out of my community, take it out of me. But I'm always willing to be corrected, and yes. So with that, please, Elan, take it away.
Awesome, Mario. I loved everything you say, as always. My name is Elan Hagens, and I am from Portland, Oregon, and I still live here, born and raised. Like, you can't take me out of the forest, so I'm here forever.
Yeah.
I was born in the 80s, and I was born to a single parent house. And so, with that being said, with a single parent house, we unfortunately did not, my mother, she was born in the early 40s. And so, being a single parent house with a mother from the South who's born in the 40s on a sharecropper's farm, there are some things, a lot of things in my life that you're like, how did these things come together? How does Elan like mushrooms, or how does this girl here, get involved with the environment? at a really young age. And I think like the what makes me is definitely my history and my background and my love for nature as a child. Because I didn't have a car, we didn't have a car, we didn't have all these opportunities like so many kids do and adults do now to go out into the woods, to go skiing on the weekends with their families, to have all these interactions that people are able to have just take like just for granted. These were the kind of things and experiences that when I was able to have them, when people in my community saw that, oh my gosh, Elan really has a knack for gardening or likes planting trees, my community is who supported me and took me and picked me up and drove me to science camp and took me to plant trees and took me to mushroom hunt and taste vegetables. My community is definitely who supported me as a child to where I'm at right now. When I was a little girl, just standing there, I just remember like on the corners, like looking at like mountain stores, mountain shops, and outdoor stores. I used to see like all these like people, being white people, going places, like having all these adventures. I didn't know what the adventures looked like. I really didn't, but I just knew wherever they were going, I kind of I wanted to see and I wanted to be there. And I know Mario and I have talked about this in depth, like about like our interaction as child. And I know he said once, like if his parents said, oh, I want a pair of hiking boots, they laugh at you because that's just how it is. Like why do you need a pair of hiking boots? And so as a child being born in Portland, Oregon, I was lucky enough to be close to the environment. I was lucky enough to have mentors who were also heavily involved in like environmental science and just education. And so I did go to an environmental middle school, and that was started by some hippie moms, hippie teachers and stuff at my elementary school. And they in fact picked me up and took me to school, and some other kids in the neighborhood too, every day. And we did that whole thing and staying there. So fast forward to me in my 20s. I love dogs. I've always been a huge animal lover. Part of loving the environment and hiking and all that is loving animals. And so the two go together. So now I'm an adult. I'm able to finally be on my own and have a dog. And it was that love for dogs that definitely like propelled me back into the wild and like back into hiking, because with these animals, honestly, if you don't have a dog, like, and you're out there by yourself, it's a different feeling. And I do it every once in a while, but I've definitely being kind of a loner, and like I'm used to like being alone. And when I am alone, it's nice to have someone to talk to. Besides, like when I was a child, it was stuffed animals. As an adult, it's my dogs, and those are my security blankets. And so like having those animals out there have been really nice and have introduced me to things like truffle hunting. When I discovered truffles and truffle hunting, that was just like by chance at some Pike Place Market in Seattle. And there's a new cocktail that came out at some new fancy place, and the dude was like, you got to try this cocktail. It's made with this stuff called truffles that dogs sniff out, and it's like a mushroom. And I was like, oh, I've heard about this a little bit. But he's like, yeah, and they have them in Oregon. I was like, huh? So that like definitely like piqued everything to me. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is cool. Like, so I immediately started being me. I'm like, okay, I need to research how to train my dogs that I have right now. I need to connect with the community. The community, there is a truffle community actually in Oregon, and it's called North American Truffle Society. So for anything, you guys, I always say, for anything you want to try and do in life, whether it be mushroom hunting, rock hounding, collecting socks, I don't know, eating desserts, whatever it is, you have a tribe. We're not going to use the word tribe, but you have a group. You have people out there. You have a family. And so I have a family. And so with truffles, there's a truffle family. With mushrooms, I have a mushroom family. And it's through those communities that I was able to connect with that kind of helped me like learn a bit more, which helped me have like access to more land, because I didn't own property to go like mushroom hunt and truffle hunt. So when you connect with your community, you're able to get access to better tools. Of course, being born in Portland, in Oregon, period, which a lot of people don't know is that, or they maybe know or just like have just assumed, is that Oregon has a sordid past with Black people owning land, Black people just being around. And I know that's with a lot of with the South, it's the same way. There's certain areas where where it's the same way. The difference, I would say to any Black people that I've talked to, people of color that I talk to, is that when you're a Black person in Oregon, you're generally, and if you're in a doing white dominant activities, you're truly in a white dominant field. Where when I'm going mushroom hunting, where I'm going to the outdoors, I'm going to a knitting group, I'm going into these activities knowing that I'm going to be the only Black person. That's just it. And that right there is like, it set a precedence actually for my entire life. Because when I was a little girl, I knew I didn't know it like I do. I can't describe it like I do now, but I knew that when I was doing these things when I was a little girl, that I was going to be the only one. And I got to experience racist things because I was in doing these things. I remember the very first time that somebody asked me if I tanned a lot, and where did I come from, and it was like, I was camping at some rural lake in Oregon, and there's kids to this day. There's lots of kids who just don't see Black people because Oregon has such a small Black community. So when I go somewhere in the outdoors, I go into that knowing that I'm not in the South where areas where the Black community is so thick, and that I know I'm going to find my people. I go into it in a different way. And so because of that, I have been put into the job of being a social justice teacher, a person of color in outdoors who is a voice for Black people in outdoor. People come to me and say, hey, people come to me who are Black and white, all colors, saying, hey, you know what? I feel sketched out when I like go down the road and try to look for mushrooms, and I'm a white person. How do you feel? And at first, for a long time, I didn't think about these things because we've been conditioned to like, as Black people, we've already been conditioned to like having this like protective, these things we do automatically that we don't even realize we do to protect ourselves. And so when people started asking me, yeah, there's some really sketched out people. You must feel like really crazy, like going by yourself mushroom hunting if I'm feeling like that. And my answer to that was like, yeah, there's some creepy ass people. Yeah, like in the woods, there's some things going on that are happening that you just gotta read those signs, look at the people, evaluate your situation, have dogs with you, have a presence about you that like, hey, if somebody's gonna mess with you, it's gonna be a shitstorm. The police are coming, everybody's coming to get you. You have to have like a kind of a presence in the woods. And I definitely have always had a presence. People don't realize that I'm like 100 pounds and like barely 5 feet tall. And it's just because how I know to like handle myself. Like the people are like, whoa, you're small when they meet me. But I'm like, yeah, I'm small, but there's a way you have to handle yourself out in the woods. And how you handle yourself out in the woods with these different people is how you handle yourself with, honestly, with like mycological societies and like different groups that are like mushroom or outdoor focused, because no matter if it's mushrooms or whatever, a lot of these are outdoor focused groups, and you're like learning that you're walking into these groups which are not the woods, but you're actually doing the same type of safety measures when you're like interacting. And like Mario, you can turn on your mic because I want you to like interject, when you have stuff to say, because you always like, you can prompt me, because Mario and I have had these conversations. We can talk for 10 hours.
Yeah.
But that is one of the things that people definitely always ask me, how are the woods? Like the safety in the woods. And I don't know how it is in San Diego, because you're not like, this is the woods, right? Where there's like right next to my house, there's like mushrooms growing everywhere, and they're everywhere. You told me a story. Your approach is obviously, it's a different climate altogether. So how do you feel not going into woods or going into the woods in your area in San Diego?
Yeah, thank you. No, and you're doing great. And you're just bringing up so many good points, and just thank you for sharing your experiences. I know we're kind of used to sharing it, and I think it's important that we're doing it. But I think it's also important that we remind folks that you and I are doing this because I think because we're used to doing it, right? And we know this is kind of a bit of our responsibility, and we seek healing not just for our own people, obviously, but we want to share our experiences with everyone to bring healing, and in that area as well, right? So everybody can, um, um, you know, maybe just reflect on our experiences and see if the things can be, changed, or if there's areas that we can hold ourselves accountable. But yeah, it's crazy, and it is one of the reasons why we even created our community, because I I'm one of the few in my neighborhood and the community I grew up in that got to experience, what is considered normal for everybody, for most people, and but to my community was considered privileges, and that was maybe being able to drive out, an hour and a half to the wilderness, or to the mountains. San Diego's landscape is known for being really outdoorsy and recreational. We have the beach, and we have surfing, and we have hiking trails, and we have the desert, and we have mountains, and all like within a 2-hour drive. And so it's a perfect area to see and be exposed to a lot of different recreational activities, things that I've never tried myself, that I've always wanted to try, that I've grew up watching, things like people, surfing one. What's that? There's the other one, guys are, they're like surfing, but they have the little glider thing, and they're
Like kiteboarding? What?
it's something like that,
Like
but it's like
Kite
windsurfing, like
surfing,
windsurfing.
kite surfing.
Thank
Oh,
you.
okay,
I couldn't
windsurfing.
think
Yeah.
of it. Yeah,
yeah.
like windsurfing, and there's so many recreational activities out here, and I mean the industry's big, and there's a lot of outdoor stores everywhere, and so but obviously a lot of those things cost money, and when you're trying to, when your parents are saving up to try to get you a new pair of shoes for your school year, and trying to get you to, the first time I went to nature ever was when I went to 6th grade camp. And that was the first time I was like really exposed to like camping outside, being in trees, canoeing, archery. I'd never, we like, that was something we didn't like ask our parents. My parents didn't do that for us, because they were, simply trying to survive. And um, so, those things were considered a privilege. And so once I got older, I was, I was able to afford my own rent and pay my own bills, and got a little older, and there was things I wanted to do that I always wanted to do when I was younger. And that included outdoor stuff, right? That included things that maybe my friends growing up would make fun of me for, like, looking at plants and trees, because I was always into plants and trees and succulents. And then just along those lines, just being outdoors, somehow I got bit by the mushroom bug too, like many people. And um, that's been a whole another journey, and just trying to navigate, my own identity, and folks in our own community, and the whole stigma behind fungi, and especially coming from religious backgrounds. And there's just all these things that are compounded when you live, like I said, 20 minutes from the border, and there's just a lot of um, just a lot of things to navigate. And so being interested in nature for like recreation, and being interested in science and mycology at that, is like, a lot of people in my community still don't know what mycology is. They know I do something with mushrooms, but if I say anything about mycology, or if I use any science words, they're like, what? They're not gonna really comprehend. So I think one of the things that I wanted to do was kind of make my ecological information, mushroom information, taxonomy information, whatever, really botanical information. I wanted to make it relevant and accessible to my community, and make it, use language that was accessible to me and us. And so there's been a good response, and I think that just speaks to the need that there was, that I wasn't the only one feeling that way, that there are many others. And so it was good connecting with Elan, and just hearing that we have very similar, situations and experiences. And so
every time we talk, we're like, it's just like it's like you're like, hell, we're the same age. It's like you're like the version of me. Like every time you like we want it. When we both have in common that when we were trying to learn more about mushrooms, is that it's hard because just we can all barely speak English as it is, so like now we're like, whoa, I can barely speak English, and now I'm like learning like Latin and stuff. And when people see like Latin words and just long words, like, and you use them, and you're around people who are really passionate about mushrooms and use them, it really just like kind of turns you off. And sometimes people in the mushroom community, because the mushroom community that is presented is definitely a very, like I said, very privileged community. And so sometimes within those privileged communities, it's always somebody trying to talking like a more doctoral type of way, like, oh, do you know this and this and this and that and that, oh, blah, 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 and this and that. And you're like, yeah, instead of saying, oh my gosh, do you like chicken of the woods? Like, like, oh my gosh, like, you're like, or hen of the woods, and like certain things, like, and with me, when I'm teaching people, I like it, like I get caught up and like stopping myself. Like I can hang, but I try not to. It's really actually harder to simplify things when you're talking, and especially when you love something and so passionate and have all these other little facts to share with people. It's really hard to simplify things. But when you simplify things, you're able to, like I said, attract people more. And and both of us have done such a good job at that, attracting like, people who would never know about mushrooms. And I think that's why we're able not only just to, as like people of color, but we're able to attract more people like us, because we're not mycologists with doctorates, and we've had a whole entire conversations. That's a whole nother topic. We're not, and so we have to, but we have been out there. We have been in the field. We have been studying it. We've been watching as children, watching National Geographic books. Like when we get out there, we don't know sometimes the next time we're going to be out in the woods when we were kids or growing up, or even now. So we just like absorb every freaking moment of it. And like, I love that about like us, like our appreciation is a different type of appreciation, for sure. Like that, I don't even know. I don't know how to describe it, but it's definitely a different type of appreciation.
Deep love. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did y'all link up? I'm curious to hear the kind of the origin stories of like
Instagram.
how y'all started. Instagram.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah. Cause I saw I saw POC Fungi Community. And it was like, and I was like, what? I have a community? I've been doing this for like a million years. Like, I was like, oh my, like right away, like just straight up on it. Like we are hooking up. We are doing this. Like I didn't. And when there's people you're going to vibe with, and people are down with, like, you just like, I'm like, send me a t-shirt. I'm buying a t-shirt. Let me wear it. I'm like wearing them front this t-shirt. I don't even know. I had to try not to wear it right now. That's like, because I just want to front and I want people to get close. And these like simple thing, like Mario's t-shirt, when I got it, it was like as simple as this. And you guys all, when you guys have, when you joined this podcast or this viewing, and when you you can see on Instagram, the mushroom, and if you read it, the description of the different things he's oh my gosh, it just like, I was like, what? This is my person. And the conversations from just something simple as some simple art, simple t-shirt, but people coming up to me, looking at me as a Black person and reading that for the first time in my entire life, like literally almost makes me cry. Like, because it's like, oh my gosh, like people understand me, they get me, they get my message, they get my work, they get that we're out here. We are freaking out here in the community. It's on not only like people of privilege who have been able to travel and see all these different things. The days of people traveling and bragging about being global and being, oh, I'm a well-traveled person, then that's now, you can't brag about that anymore, you guys. Like, that's done. Because most likely, if you're a well-traveled person, just let's be real, it's like because you are, I mean, not saying for everybody, but a lot of times you were in a privileged place to be able to travel the world and to do these experiences and have these shaman experiences and transformative things that you want to come back and bring to us. And so that's why, like, when I saw, like, it's, we'll talk about that too. Like, we can get heavy into that, but
oh yeah, I'm down to get spicy, because like you're totally right. Like the psychedelic tourism is just like more, it's just like, I don't know, it's just built off the back of the colonial oppression that started 500 years ago. Like, it's just pure like settler colonialism, and going in and just like completely ignoring the indigenous tradition and acknowledging any of it, and just like going in to get better ideas for your Silicon Valley company. Like, sorry, that's just like out of this world. Like, not
out of this, yes, out of this world. Might as well get into it. Like, yeah, so throughout since I'm an Oregonian and I've been selling wild mushrooms for a decade now, there's not a single week where somebody hasn't came by and said, like, do you got something else for me? Or, where's the other kind of mushrooms? Or somebody like, back in the 60s, I had this great healing and all this kind of stuff. And the type of people who used to ask me those questions are obviously, we know what they look like. I don't even need to say we know what this person looks like. This person is many people, but we know the character. So I always used to say, oh no, I don't, but the second it's legal, I want to be like, I want to make sure that you have proper access to this medicine. I've always been down for like that. And so fast forward, and 2020, it passes. So like Oregon is like, we're in it. We're here. All this crap I've been talking and saying to my customers in the past about, oh yeah, one day, now I have to like actually do something about it, because I have such a huge responsibility, like more than just my food justice with wild edibles, because I've been working with food justice with wild edibles. I'll just wrap that up really quickly. Why is indigenous food so expensive? Why can't I afford to taste a morel? Why can't anybody taste it? Why does it have to be a No. So that's what I've been doing and working on for 10 years. Whole nother, we could get on food justice subject forever. But if you came to my stand at Temptress Truffles, I will take WIC, I will take food stamps, any kind of food assistance, tokens or whatever, you have access. And I've made sure that everybody who comes to me in the state of Oregon can afford to have the highest quality foo-foo, French, all this, the foo-foo food. I have truffles, I have it. And guess what? I would never been able to afford it when I was a young child, because I wouldn't have even known about it existing. And if I would have sold $40 a pound, I would have ran. But so I've done that. So that part. So now we're working on, okay, now we have medicine, and we have medicine that is an indigenous medicine. And we have all these people now coming from all over the woodwork asking my I started my partner and I, Becca Martinez, we started a new collective called Fruitingbodies Collective, and we have a podcast. So please We're on Instagram at Fruitingbodies CO. We are going to talk and get into so many different aspects of everything, a little bit of what Mario and I are talking about today. But we felt a responsibility to change how mushrooms are portrayed and look. And we all know that mushrooms, we're talking about this crosses over with both. I can say this, a lot of this crosses over with fancy wild edibles. But we're talking about like psychedelics, we're talking about psilocybin. We know a lot of times that when people see mushrooms, they're thinking of like a hippie in the 60s and somebody like tripping balls with dreadlocks that looks like crap and is talking some weird circle spiritual stuff to you, right? That's what we're used to, and that's what society unfortunately sees, and it has scared them and has contributed a lot to mycophobia. Not just the fact that mushrooms from the way mycophobia has a long history, but that definitely, because honestly, does a person who needs healing, who looks like you, Mario, looks like me, want to look like that? Like, I'm sorry, that's scary. Like that's scary. Like, I don't want to look like that. I don't want to look like a dirty person in the ground with tie dye. And I mean, I'm about it. I can go to festivals. I can get down. Don't even trip. But that's not a healing, and that's like disrespecting to the medicine that we have. And so, like, I know you and I, like, our biggest goal and our biggest hurdle, and with Fruitingbodies Podcast, we are trying to destigmatize mushrooms. And oh my gosh, you guys, like, destigmatizing mushrooms, it's like well, it is not an easy thing, and it is not an easy thing. And by destigmatizing, I mean, we're constantly, we can give somebody the education, the proper education about healing, about the medicine, and they're still gonna do something awful. Like, you want to talk about it, because Mario is definitely in the psychedelic space. We both we connected before that, but now it's like, oh yeah, we can talk about this now. And I want you to interject more.
Thank you. Well, there's so much, since we started this conversation, I'm been burning some chaga here, actually, some chaga that I've used and I've extracted twice and made into tincture, and then I save and dry out the material, and then I burn it. So it gets 3 uses, or it goes through 3 stages for me. And since we're talking about sacred mushrooms and medicine and honoring these ways, and I want to honor this medicine that I've been using for a while. I want to honor the memory of and all those who fought to keep their traditional medicine ways alive and keep their songs secret, to keep them keep their knowledge of different plants and herbs sacred. And there's been a lot of things that are inevitable and that are going to happen. And I think we, Elan and I have been seeing for a while what's going to happen, and we've kind of seen the legislation. We noticed, I mean, we've been doing this for a while, at least 10 years, and so we know where the talks have been going, and where all these where the intention has been. So I think we've been just trying to there's, I mean, up top of so many things, but the destigmatization, like you said earlier, is huge, especially when dealing with POC, with people of color, and you talk about the war on drugs, right, and all of the things that have been compounded with that. And I mean, we could look at the cannabis industry, and we can go into this different aspects of the way medicine has been commodified, and I really don't know where like to really jump in on that one, because it's something that I am really passionate about, and I've been trying my hardest not to be too vocal about some of these psychedelic things, just because every time I do, there's a tendency to kind of make the POC fungi community the spokespeople, and as if we were a monolith speaking for all of people of color, speaking for all of indigenous people, for all of Black people, and the truth is we're not. Each community looks different, and so everybody wants different things. Everybody is going to express themselves differently, and like I said, it's something I am passionate about, and I think when anybody ever studies anything in ethnomycology, there's like some sort of fascination with psychedelics, starting with Wasson, right, and his paper and the books, and when you talk about the soma mushroom, and all the traditions associated with fly agaric, and all these hallucinogenic, psychedelic, and theogenic, whatever word you want to use to describe these things that indigenous people consider sacred, and all these things have been really, I think, watered down, sold, commodified, and I think something that we're trying to preserve as well, on top of destigmatization, is also preserving the sacred. And that's one of the things that I consider my responsibility, especially because I've been held accountable and been corrected by elders before, and been brought in and have been told, like, if you're going to be talking about any of these things, you need to be talking about this thing as well. And so, with that, that's why I mentioned chaga, because that's another thing that's been commodified. That's another thing that's, although it's considered stable right now, I don't believe we have a sustainable practice of chaga, and there is a long history of ceremonial use of chaga. And so that's one of the things that we also want to do, and that's why I brought it in with that intention as well, like, and include it with sacred psilocybin mushrooms as well, because I want to challenge our notion of what is magic, what is sacred, what is valuable to us, and in the ways, traditional ways of knowing and thinking and viewing the world, really everything is sacred, right? And well, to me, science it's been tricky, because you also want to include science, and you don't want to sound. That's the game and the dance that I've been playing, is portraying my community in a way that can also stand up to institutional knowledge as well. So in that way, I gotta always, I gotta shout out Robin Wall Kimmerer and her book Braiding Sweetgrass, because that's been a huge inspiration to my work and the way I view the world. And it's just very influential. And so I forgot what I was going to say, but that's, in a nutshell, I wanted to just end it with that.
I love, I just recently, my spouse is reading Braiding Sweetgrass for a book club she's in, the Central Texas Farmers Coalition. They're doing that book. So I was very interested in the concept of it. So I started reading it too. And to me, I immediately saw, like, as someone who's, very openly a socialist, like seeing the revolutionary potential in it, because a part of what I see as like this revolution that we need to do is a reintegration of like humanity into like an ecological mind frame, like understanding like where our food and medicine comes from, in that ecological sense of like, we are all tied into this biosphere. And that's, I think, going back to what you said about like the indigenous and traditional knowledge and reconciling that with science, what I find is like a lot of what it is doing, especially from the ecological perspective, it's actually verifying a lot of that, like very long, deep traditional knowledge and stuff like that, which I find just amazingly beautiful, because it just shows that like human observation like transcends like something culture, that you can people can learn things through, you know, trial and error, observation, experimentation outside of like the quote unquote Western scientific method canon.
Right. No,
And
and
oh, go
I,
ahead,
I,
go ahead.
no, I appreciate you saying that, just
Yeah.
because, yeah, I see science kind of as a portal to my spirituality in many ways. You know, like you said, it verifies so many things that um, that we maybe somehow innately know or feel or see. You know. And you want to explain it, and then when you find out, when you look under a microscope, you're like, oh wow, there's a whole nother world here. And to me, that just deepens the mystery and the magic and my connection, you know, to nature and to this life. So you know, yeah, Robin's book is amazing in that way, because it just verified so much of that. And um I appreciate, you know, just having this conversation right now, honestly.
Yeah.
It's something I've been struggling with too, especially with COVID and everything, because, you know, when you start to speak of psychedelia or spirituality, people want to lump you and think, you know, that you know, there's, especially with everything going on, there's like these pseudo groups and like, and you know, I'm you know, it's just funny with all the conspiracies and all of these things. You know, people expect me to be a certain way, or you know, like to agree with certain things, but I'm like, no, I'm a scientist, actually. I don't know if you knew that. And like my exploration work, my journey work has all like grounded me here. It doesn't like, you know, blast me off into some like alien world, or, you know, like those experiences, you know, that I feel maybe contribute to, you know, some, you know, just some like weird, you know, thoughts that are going on around, and especially and you know, a lot of different communities and spirituality communities and medicine communities. And yeah, thank you. But yeah, Elan,
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I love it. You know, I love it. Yeah, about the community. And I think one of the things is that with us being with mushrooms trending, because mushrooms are trending. We've talked about that. Everybody knows mushrooms are trending through drinks. The chocolate, you know, everybody has a chocolate chai, which is one of my favorite drinks. There's like all these big companies with mushroom drinks, and we're talking about everybody has a tincture company all of a sudden since last week, and all the and everybody is now a guided a mushroom therapist all of a sudden since last week too. We're like, where did all these $4,000 like clinics come from, and all these places? Where were they? Like, where I mean, some of them have, a teeny bit of them have been around, but man, there's so many people right now who are taking the material and giving it out in a way like we talked about, where it's not like it's self-appointed, like you're a self-appointed prophet. And we are trying to, we're not saying we're there, and that really, that there's a lot of, you know, false prophets, and this me saying prophets is, if I went to church, I grew up in the church, Mario grew up in the church, a lot of this stuff feels very familiar to us.
Yeah, feels really evangelical. We were saying,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And so we see a lot of this self-profiting stuff happening like right now, where people are like, I am this. And people, unfortunately, because it's trending and a lot of people don't know about mushrooms, they're not gullible, but they just don't know where to go. And so because of that, we have people who just started studying mushrooms or just read 2 articles about it, and they are the voice. Unfortunately, they are the voice. They are the professionals out there. And so, and I'm not saying like you had to be in the game, in the business for as long as Mario and I have, but that goes back to, hey, you need to give honor and respect for any career, any job. I don't care what you're doing, but for the people who have paved the way for you. And you need to check that your references are genuine. You need to check them. And so that's why, like, with so many people, and definitely Oregon with the psilocybin space, um, like everybody is all of a sudden is coming out the woodworks, like over, like it is insane. And with us and me and my partner Becca talking to people, and just like, because we want to educate people, we want people to help Black people heal. That's like all we care about. And we are for the war on drugs. We are like, that is us. And we want to educate people, and we want people to get healing from us in the future on like a sliding scale clinic. But because we know so much information and we want to share it and teach everybody, sometimes in that you get back to the thing where people start taking the information and you know, they're spitting it back out there as their own. And so all of a sudden you've met with somebody and taught them about mushrooms, and then tomorrow they have a full lab, they have this, they have all that kind of stuff. And you're like, man, and then they're saying we're supporting BIPOCs. And you're like, and it's this like digital blackface stuff we're talking about earlier, Mario. But
Yep.
and that's like, we're dealing with that, and that sometimes we want to be the voices and we want to give the information, but it's sometimes what we're dealing with is like the type of people that are doing this are the same type of people who have been doing this. So like I said, I don't need to put a face or say all this person, but the same type of character you can imagine. The same people are doing this. So that is like a battle on our own, where it's like, oh my gosh, now I have to go back and make myself not seen again, because we're used to be not being seen, because this voice all of a sudden who took information that we were sharing with them and just wanted them to have, they're like off running with it with their millions, and like, I'm the guy, and this is a guy, but maybe I'm the guy, you know. And so and so like a lot of times we're like with that, and that guy is most likely coming not for the healing space, but they're coming for the capital. And because so many people see right now, so many people see dollar signs. And I was talking to Mario about how Becca and I, like how we've received, people know that people look up to us, and they understand that we have great information and we want to share it with everybody, and we'll put that on a platform for everybody to have it. Agriculture, all that, everything with psilocybin, we want people to have access to it. But like, that being said, like, you got to be careful. You just really got to be, you got to, like, I know it keeps coming back to like, you got to be careful. And I don't know, like, I know it's like, I don't want to say psilocybin is scary, because like I said, we want people to get to healing, but you got to be careful, because so many people are just out for the dollars, and they're just gonna just like stomp all over you. And
they're definitely portraying it like a magic bullet. And you know, I know not to treat any medicine like that, and I know it's you know, and so you know, I think there's a lot to learn as far as proper education and protocol. And I think just like I think we mentioned earlier, is like, you know, it's being just toted, and like, you know, there's like all these articles. I mean, every day there's a new article done by somebody and praising it. And not that it doesn't deserve any praise, and not that I don't believe in its healing powers, not that I don't believe it can do all these things. But I think with all this information going out, there's this person recently, a veteran, who was, you know, I could just imagine in a really vulnerable space, desperate and pain, searching for some sort of relief.
Yeah.
Heard about the healing potential, read some article, got on the internet, ordered a syringe of some psilocybin spores or a culture, and injected it, because that's how they figured you do drugs. And if it comes in a syringe, that I assume you put that in your vein. And this guy, I'm sure everybody here heard about that, and had to go through all this. I think they had some really bad kidney failure, and but I think that was almost bound to happen. Somebody's bound to get hurt in that way when you have all of this information, all of this this promise of healing and of relief, and especially when people, in a time when all this information is just being bombarded, and when we treat anything new as we go in and commodify it and take all we can, and then it's the next new thing, the next fad, whether it be maca, whether it be ashwagandha,
elderberry,
turmeric, or whatever,
it's always something.
Psilocybin, and
it's not psilocybin, yeah, totally.
And so I think I feel for that person who got hurt, and that they're a veteran, I believe, who was, again, they probably read an article that said something about PTSD, right? Relief from PTSD. And so I think
educate.
Yeah. A lot of education needs to be done before we promise people a cure, and which a lot of these companies are promising.
A cure from nothing, like they're just like, here, you can have it, depression, this, and they're just spouting out these words that are like, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm depressed, because most of us are, I'm this,
right.
and it's like everybody is so desperate for healing, and reason why 109 passed in Oregon is because as a society we know what has been done in the past isn't working. And so everybody's like, come on, we know there's another way. We know there has been research that has proven that this therapy helps. And so that's why everybody right now is like, oh my gosh, we got to make this happen. And so, we've been getting more emails in the past month or whatever, since we said Fruitingbodies and Temptress Truffles and Becca were doing Fruitingbodies. We have received more emails about investments than about how can I get involved and how I invest. And can you please teach us more about psilocybin therapy and how this is going to heal? And, and so because of that, we're like having to address, like capital with plant medicine. And lucky enough for our state, which we're going to be like an example for the whole entire country, because a lot of people in the future are going to be changing their laws too after they see us. But one of the big things when we were setting this up is that we wanted to make sure that this was not going to be another cannabis industry. This was not going to be just big pharma, big dollars just coming in and just being like, I'm going to plant 40,000 acres of weed and I'm going to just take over, because there are huge investors that are out there just in the cannabis scene. Everybody knows it. And there are actually huge investors and investment groups and corporations that have literally popped up overnight since 109 has passed. There are people who are experts in this. I'm like, how are you an expert in something where, number one, the laws, the rules, the laws, you guys, haven't even been set? It's going to be a 2-year period of just sitting here and talking about what's illegal, doing things, self-harm, harm reduction. I mean, the Psilocybin Advisory Board in Oregon is going to be made of a lot of great people, and they're like scientists, people involved with drugs. Cops. I mean, there's so many people that are involved in this to make this 2-year process happen, and it's not going to be an overnight type of thing where it's just like right away it's legal. And one thing that people still have a problem understanding, even though big pharma can't come in, and it's like, great, now the little guys, which I'm a little guy, I'm like this, Beck and I are like this tall, they were little guys, so it was set up to where only, I think, one person or a group can only own like 5 clinics. So in the future, say if that Fruitingbodies has like a clinic, I'm not going to be able to be like, here, me and my millions of dollars that I don't have, are going to come in and open up a bunch of clinics, and this is going to be our way, and this is how we do it. And that was set up it was set up so BIPOC and people who aren't, as fortunate in a privileged position, that we can be all on the even ground. And same with the grow. Like there's not going to be a person with 5, 6, 7 grows, because if you don't, smoking a pound of weed is a lot different than a pound of mushrooms. Like it's completely different. We all know that because nobody's taking a pound of mushrooms if for healing. I mean, I'm not saying nobody, never say never. May they be okay and not in a hospital forever.
That's a lot of fungus.
Yeah, I'm like, are they in a straitjacket at this point? But so there's a responsibility for it, and this is a medicine. So people still have a hard time understanding with our law that this is not weed. This will not be at a clinic where you are going to go in and buy a tin of microdosing gummies, and you're not going to be able to go buy a soda pop mushroom right now. Like I don't know if I'm not even going to talk about the future because we're barely here right now, but but in 2 years, I know we're not going to go and buy chocolates and all these things. But there's so many people who are so excited about this right now that they're spending thousands of dollars on all this R&D without even looking into what's going to be allowed. And one of the biggest things is that with this getting passed, the people who are going to even be allowed or be able, everyone's going to be applying for licenses. The people who are going to be applying for licenses, they're going to be looked at as far as race, which I like. Some people are like, oh, I want to not know. I want to be on an even scale. No, I want them to know that, hey, I'm Black and I'm applying and I'm a female and I'm from Oregon and I voted yes and I collected signatures and I am like pro making this medicine get out the right way compared to whoever comes in with they fill out their thing and they go and I want to open a clinic. Like who are you going to want to receive healing from? Like who and that's just like, I'm not saying like I have the way that our way is the way, because we work with other people. It's not just Fruitingbodies, Temptress Truffles. We have people that are involved and as passionate about psilocybin healing as I am, honestly. And so like we are the people who want to try to make a voice right now, be out there, be loud about it. So when the other people come in, you guys are going to be like, oh, that's nice. But what about this? Do you have the seal of I don't know, saying seal of approval? Does your company support BIPOCs? Are you working in some kind of system where people can get healing without paying a bunch of money? Like, do you make more money and are you going to pay a higher dollar so somebody else can receive the treatment that we need, that I need? That is a big part of our mission, and a lot of the people I'm working with mission, and we will be involved. We're going to try to be involved as well with, mycotourism, because when people are going to come in, there's going to be all these big dollars and all these things to do, and mycotourism exists. Like Mario and we talk about, that's everything that's done now. As far as psilocybin therapy, I kind of put it under the category mycotourism because it's either underground or in another country where they don't care. And so there's that huge tourist aspect and the privilege aspect of being able to travel to these countries to have these treatments, to bring them back, to tell us how it's done. But it's a long thing, and I'll repeat myself like that again.
You're good.
And so people have been asking Mario, like, you have a Venmo, say it, and if I have a Venmo, they've been asking for that information. And they asking for, so I wrote it down. So my Venmo, if you want to contribute, is at Elan Hagens, Hagens, and I'm at Temptress Truffles and at Fruitingbodies Co, as I said earlier. And Mario, say yours so we can just get this task.
Yeah, no, it's POC Fungi Community. Thanks, y'all. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you guys. Like we
Super
totally
important. Send them donations, everybody.
Oh, you're sweet. That's really
yeah.
appreciated.
And if there's anything you guys like, our minds with so much information. I know we haven't talked about like the specifics of science of psilocybins, and we've been talking about like, you know, equity and inclusion and all that. I mean, I'll say it again, Mario and I can talk for forever. And
God.
but
No,
if
well,
there's any questions or any prompts, no, we'll definitely answer.
There was a good question that came up in the chat earlier, and it was and I kind of have my own question that kind of expands upon it a little bit, but it was asking like, how did you get involved with the Psilocybin Advisory Board, or how does one get involved into that? And then
Does
like,
one get involved? Yeah.
yeah, how, and then like if you were to like be advising some other group that wanted to organize like a similar campaign in their city or then, you know, in their state, like, you know, what would you advise them to do? How would you kind of tell them to get started?
Oh yeah, that good question. So how one gets involved in the psilocybin advisory board. The board has actually not been appointed, so the applications were accepted at the beginning of January, and those specific positions that I was mentioning earlier, like there are some very specific positions like scientists and doctors and mental health, and there's so many different specific positions. But then there's also the position of community member and community role, because within this they know that a big part of this is going to be community fed, because obviously we voted for it, and so this is our medicine, and so they're not going to tell us how we're going to receive our medicine now that it's been approved. So that community person, whoever it is that's going to pick, I personally did not apply for it, but I know so many people who did that I work with, and I'm excited about it. I'm so excited. But then there is will be other groups that form after this hardcore policy board and this advisory board, and it will be announced. If you guys like want to set some kind of Google alerts, it is public information, and it will be announced here shortly. Actually, like I think within the next 2 weeks, it's going to be announced all over for people to watch and follow. But there will be like equity and inclusion boards, and those are kind of things that I love to be involved with or those little offshoot campaigns and offshoot little boards that, I'm not saying they're little because this ain't nothing little, but I prefer to put my efforts there into like that social justice specific instead of like the science of it sometimes. I have a question here. Somebody can answer. There's a question from Becca that came below. Did you guys read that?
Let's see. It says, I believe Governor of Oregon appointed the advisory board a few days ago, but it has not yet been announced. We work closely within Healing Advocacy Fund, which is a nonprofit in charge of making sure the program is rolled out in the ways the bills was intended. And then she said it's an offshoot of the chief petitioners of IP 109.
Which is what IP 109 is, what psilocybin healing, which got passed our law. And so, yeah, so it's nice to have Becca to put in. She's always put a little something in. So, yeah, somebody did ask that. Reminding everybody that book that was mentioned was Braiding Sweetgrass. Mm-hmm. I know that somebody else asked that, and that we all love and recommend that. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else, like specifically? I'll say one thing, like our dream, we always say we have a podcast, and one of our things is like we mention like what healing is to us. And I know this is like a Central Texas mycology group, and I'm part of a mycology group too. And I have a small mycology group. But one of the things, even without talking about psilocybin, that we have like learned to do with each other is definitely like heal. And through the people that I've met in the mushroom community, like it's been so nice for me to have an extended family. And we always say like, oh my gosh, the mycelium is doing its job. It's connecting. Anybody in mushrooms knows that every time there's like some kind of like new connection, we're like, oh, it's the mycelium. It's the hyphae. And
Yeah.
like they're super like nerdy about it, but it's so true. Like it's like so true. It's like there's nothing, nobody I haven't met through mushrooms, or just somebody who even asked a question who wants to know about mushrooms. I'm like, you're awesome. I want to teach you stuff, because you were interested. And it's like, they don't have to be directly, but the mycelium is like doing its thing and spreading. And that's how we're able to connect, Mario. And that's how we're going to connect with people who are going to provide grants for healing in the future. We're going to connect. And people who are listening now are going to connect, and they're going to share some of this information. And they're like, and that's straight up, we're right back to it. That's that mycelium doing its job. Right. Get us there. Like, it's that. Crazy. It's every freaking day. It's like some new revelation. We're like, what? Mycelium.
Love that. Everything is connected. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so connected, and it's a healing thing. And like I said, it's nice to have a healing. It's nice to have other people in the community to heal with. And like our dream, like with Fruitingbodies Podcast and Fruitingbodies Collective, our dream of dreams is to like have like a beautiful piece of land. And Mario and I talked about this, like, oh, what's your dream of dreams? Like, we would love a beautiful piece of land, each of us, one here in like Oregon, one in San Diego. I want them everywhere, but piece of land with like beautiful hot springs and great people with great intentions for people just to come and like center themselves. It doesn't have to always be in like a woo spiritual type of way with that weird skeevy vibe that I talked about earlier that some people at these places can give off, without meaning to. Some they have good intentions, but just a place where people can get grounded, connect, and they just like come there and just like transform. They don't have to transform, but just get some good vibes. Just get some, even just for good vibes. Like, that's my dream, like to have places like that. And it has to do with land conservation too, because I want people to learn to love the land and learn that these mushrooms are, even though they will be grown in labs, but these are all driven from our wild harvesting. And that's why I'm connected to this, because I'm an outdoor freak and an outdoors woman. And that was my connection to mushrooms, now the healing. And look, and now all these years I've been getting like re-injured by different things, but the mushrooms have been here like bringing me back. My mushroom friends have been bringing me back. And now they really get to legally bring me like some healing.
So somebody was asking about digital blackface, and what you meant by that. I know we had a talk today about that actually, and I don't know if we had time to get into a little bit of that. And
I believe we have time for that. Yeah, unless y'all need to run out of here real quick, or if someone needs to take a break, like I understand that too.
Yeah, digital. Yeah, we talked about digital blackface and it going on, and I'm trying not to like talk too much because I'm like, I love this talking about this subject and preventing this.
Educate us. That's what we hoped you would do for us tonight. So
digital blackface is exactly what you think it is. First and foremost, like it is like, okay, here's a brand saying, oh, we support Black people and this and that, and and they put beautiful pictures of my beautiful people with our afros, and it's just like, come to the freaking land, and they're not giving back. It's just that's as far as it gets. And they probably didn't even pay the models what we deserved. So, they probably even like it's surface. And it comes to a lot of different businesses, not just mushrooms. There's a lot of people who are throwing around, I'm this, I have this, and I'm on this indigenous lands. And I go over this. If any of you guys follow my Instagram stories, I bring this up quite often because I'm just in it. I'm just in it all the time. But they're people are using like politically correct, now our politically correct terms, to like sell things. And so that's
Right.
like not okay. That is not okay in so many ways. That angers me, like as like a Black business owner, and like people contacting me and people wanting to be friends with me, and because I'm a Black business owner, and then they saying, hey, but I'm a good person because I'm friends with Elan. And I'm like, I can't vouch for you guys. Like, I can't vouch for everybody. Like, but digital blackface is exactly what you guys think, and that it is like using like indigenous and all these other things and saying that you are for the cause, and really you're probably just like, I'm not going to be
making
too
money.
mean.
No,
You're making money and not giving back, or
you're
maybe
co-opting. Yeah,
you're co-opting. And a lot of times it's like, okay, and I've talked about this, where it's like, I love that everybody's giving 10% of their profits, all of a sudden changed everything on their business. Now giving 10%, now giving part of this to this group and that group, and oh, Black Lives Matter. You know what? We love money. Money is great. But guess what will get you farther as a business, as a person, as anything, is actually not just giving maybe sending $100 check to that individual. How about instead, say you're a coffee shop, say you're selling pastries. How about instead of you getting just these pastries from Costco, how about you go find a Black person in that community who's making pastries, and then they get the money, and then you're promoting them by selling their pastries. That connection does so much for somebody like me. Like people, the reason why I'm in the position that I'm at is because people have given me those connections. And if somebody would have said, just here, send me $50, I'm like, oh, that's nice, $50. But we can try harder to connect with our community. Like I said, offer jobs, because a lot of times we are struggling with thinking that we're good enough to do jobs that we are more than qualified for. But we need a little help every once in a while. So like even Mario like saying, hey, Elan, come tonight. I'm like, oh, okay. But guess what? I've been doing mushrooms not doing mushrooms, but I've been educating people about mushrooms. But even I am like, oh gosh, I don't need it. I don't know about this. I have straight up imposter syndrome, and I have it hardcore all the time. And I know everybody's like throwing around imposter syndrome, and I talk about how we're like our own enemies and self-saboteurs, but it is true. What makes me happy and what uplifts me is when people share the good things that happen in my life, and that just makes me feel really good. And then I know, oh my gosh, they're seeing me, and they respect me. And so that's what I say when digital blackface. You guys, if you're going to share Black people on your media, all of a sudden, if it's an all of a sudden transition from all white to now all Black, it's obvious. There's other ways that you can help. It's okay to start showing Black people, because you need to do that, but also don't pander. Go deeper. And here's the thing: if you help somebody out, and if you've heard Emmy talk before, if you help somebody out, here's something that I want you guys to do. Don't tell anybody about it. Stop telling everybody about how you helped somebody. Like, stop it. Like, take that, learn from that, take those moments, help somebody else out. Stop being like, oh, I've helped this person out. It does nothing. It does nothing. It's not genuine. It feels like it's very self-serving. And I'd say like 80% of my contacts a lot of times are like that. And I know people don't mean to be, because they just want to help. But sometimes, I know Mario and I talked about it earlier, just step back. Let the voices, there's people who have voices who want to talk, but sometimes we're like a little like, it's just years and years and years of stuff that we're carrying, that like sometimes even like somebody confident like me, I can go sit down in a corner and be like an anxious freaking mess too by myself. Like I have it in me. We all have it in me. So when I say like, yeah, digital blackface. Well, do you have anything else to say about digital blackface, Mario?
No,
Since I just went off on a tangent.
Go off. I loved it. I
go
really,
off, yeah.
I appreciate it, and you all should just be lucky to be hearing this right now, honestly. And it's a privilege. Thank you, Elan, for sharing all that, because yeah, not many of us learn, maybe none of us learned this in school, right? And these are things, conversations that need to be had more. And so it's a privilege to be able to just tune in for free and hear you educate us and tell us how it is and how it feels. So you hit it right on. That was perfect.
And it's not just blackface, it's also, we talked about, when I say the word institute, that triggers you. It's and with this being and same thing can happen with like psilocybin being we're like cubensis and psychedelics and stuff. So being a Mexican man having the same thing, there's companies now who are doing the same blackface. I'll call it Mexican face. Like it's like there's that with this. Like I'm just gonna knock it on the head. Like that's happening. We talked about that. I don't know if you feel like sharing a little bit about that, or if it's personal.
Yeah, I might save it for a little bit, but
I think
I appreciate you, just saying that, and that means a lot in itself. Because there is a lot that's happening, but again, as many stones as I throw, sometimes what we've said, like sometimes like we're just throwing stones at the wall. I like to think we're making some sort of difference, and I want everybody to know that
we are.
I want everybody to know that we say all these things not from a place of divisiveness, of hate or anger. Really, it does come from a place of wanting to heal, wanting to bring more understanding, wanting to bring more justice and more access, more equity. Like, it just goes on. And so, our passion just comes from that place, period. So yeah, no, thanks for sharing all that, Elan. You're amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else? Is there any other questions that passed through that while we're here and chatting?
Someone just wanted to say thank you so much. It made their week to see someone who looks like them doing what they want to do. So,
see, that's right there. That's literally one person.
We're here for you, literally.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's why
this is it. Yeah. It means so much, you guys.
I guess along those lines, like as an organization, what could we do, and what could we help our membership do in order to recruit more of the BIPOC community and help, because we are an education group, we want to teach people about it. How can we help inspire people like that to connect to ecology and mycology, with our organization
with your organization? Yeah, I definitely think, like I said earlier, like kids, it's nice to be able to start younger. And with your organization, I say like colleges, community colleges, especially like community colleges, a lot of the times are taking aren't always the rich kids. And
Right.
So sometimes like that's where you guys could put your efforts in, is like approaching a community college, the kids who aren't going to Ivy League schools, because that's where they're going to learn mycology. And that's where high schoolers and young kids can take like non-credit courses. And there's a lot of support within the college system, like within community colleges. It's not, it's called community college for a reason. And I say that's especially if you're in an area, and if you're in a town, I don't know what the demographics look like in your town. I can't just assume that everything. I mean, Oregon is different than Texas by far.
Right, totally,
but if you have an African American community or BIPOC community, that's bigger than Oregon's like 5 and 6%, then we are literally waiting for you, like to say, come. Like it's you don't have to do much. You just, I mean, you could host an outdoor event and say, hey, let's go on a hike. We are hosting, our Mycological Society is hosting an outdoor event. And if you need any hiking shoes, anything like that, those things are big barriers. As if you guys know, like hiking in Chuck Taylors and like a jersey sweatshirt will literally not, it will make you never want to go again.
Right.
Like, so it's those access to like I said, the shoes, and you and me in the shoe conversation is going to come up for, it's our part of our life story, but how that changed, having hiking will change.
We might have to do something with that, honestly, and that might be, something.
Would you mind sharing that story?
I mean, it's just around, our access to gear like hiking gear and, and shoe, I wasn't, just the fact that I could never really ask my parents for a pair of hiking boots, when I'm just trying to, get like, just a regular pair of shoes and for the school year, and get a new pair of pants and stuff like that. But, I think, to your question, I think like Elan was saying, just making things accessible is big. I think y'all are kind of already doing what you should be doing, and doing what you're doing right now, educating yourselves, giving, more BIPOC platform. Y'all seem to be, like I said, a little different than most, mycological clubs. And so I appreciate it, and why I agreed to come on here with y'all, and why I knew it would be safe and cool to bring Elan here too. But yeah, making things accessible, offering things at a sliding scale, offering scholarships, saying, not being afraid to say this event is for BIPOC only, asking, or saying prioritizes, or if you need, and I think there's simple things like that help. And I think if it's, also being vocal around if there's any type of microaggressions, and making sure that there's a safe space, and making sure that, you acknowledge that. And like, if somebody's being derogatory and sensitive to trans people, to Black people, to Indigenous people, that you can say, this is not a space for you. And if you're not going to, and regardless if they're the ex-president of the Mycological Society, or if they've written a book or a journal and they don't agree with, whatever, when you don't speak out about those things, you're not making it safe for QTBIPOC folks, period. And so, but I think a great way is to, go get them young, go into high schools and setting up. What's really cool I've noticed is just setting up, like, the way you would for a foray or something, setting up at a science thing, or if there's a high school science lab going on, like, set up a microscope, set up mushrooms, bring them out there. And some of these kids have never looked into a microscope. I was one of those. I didn't really look into a microscope during high school, because I'm not going to let somebody like me look into a microscope. But it wasn't. But I think those things, might change someone's trajectory even. And like, whoa, I like science. This is cool. I might not want to, do XYZ today and do, read a book about mushrooms, about nature, or whatever. I think things like that are cool that y'all can do. And like I said, y'all are already doing it. So,
Yeah. Thank you. Like, I see, I've seen your moves before, before Mario. So I was like, oh, right, I like this. And I think it's great that you guys are doing this, because other mycological societies are going to be forced to follow. And I'm not saying it's like, I'm not saying forced, but it's like, it's a good thing. It's a good thing because, like Mario was saying, there are going to be people who are going to rub you or somebody else the wrong way, and they're going to be people that you respect or have respect, and they're going to disappoint you, and that's just part of part of it. It's like, you're like, oh my gosh, I respect you so much. And you had to go there and you had to say this thing. And you take them aside and they're still defending themselves. And then you're like, man, that stunk. And that's a part of it too. Like in your community, when you are wanting, like I say, every time I know that I'm going to a certain kind of activity, I'm like, I know I'm going into an all white space and that there's going to be somebody to say somebody's going to say something stupid. Like, right. It's not if, it's when. And it's not being funny, stupid. It's something you're like, that was disgusting. And right now I have to either be quiet about it because I don't want to be that angry Black person always bringing shit up. But then it's like, you have this conviction. You're like, this ain't right. I got to take this moment now. Now I'm mad because I was in a good space and now I had to take time out of my life to educate this person
right
about this. And so sometimes you do a lot of education, and it helps when there are people, when my allies around me, my white allies around me, when they can call out stuff before sometimes I even notice. Like, I didn't notice for years until a couple allies told me at my farmer's market that every time they stood next to me at the farmer's market, that people literally just acted like I didn't exist and would only refer to them, like flat out refused to. Even they're like, she's the business owner. They're like, flat out refused. And if there's a white man standing in my booth, that's just how it's gonna happen. Nobody's gonna talk to me or think I'm like part of that. But like, yeah, but having those allies speak up and make themselves known, but not in a gross way. But like, right. I was part of a knitter group in a small town. It's a hand spinner group. And the first night, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the average age is 65. And these are all small town ladies who want to pretend to be pioneers because they love that. They love those days where were my people's worst days. They like, oh my gosh, the best thing. But I found the first night, I found the two people who like kind of like, hey girl, how are you doing? Or I knew where one of them lived. And I was like, oh, so she's been around me, my people. But it's nice if you're in that group, if you make yourself known that you're a safe person, because right. Those two women have been my ride or dies for the last 5 years. And they have kind of had other people come with me and us. Yep. And it's like, it's us. And then the people who are not playing by the rules or playing nice, they're going to eventually feel like they don't belong there. And that's fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's fine. And that's making a safe Black space, honestly. Yeah. That support, that is a safe Black space, and then not in a way where it's not negative, but just realizing and knowing that, oh my gosh, when I step into this space, it's taking a lot for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was perfect.
Wow. Yeah. Those are so many wonderful suggestions for how to create a more loving group and to help bring our love for mycology and ecology, to our broader community and try and be a facilitating role in moving past and healing through, historical traumas that we also carry around with us. And, part of my background research has been into like the psychological well-being of interacting with nature and just like how psychologically restorative that is. And so like we've talked a lot about trauma in this discussion tonight, and like so much of that is and it brought up that magic mushrooms are kind of viewed as like this silver bullet for that, when like really it's like a way to treat some symptoms of the problem. But like the way, the social relations of our society are organized in such a way that it's very alienating. It alienates us from our ecology and stuff like that. And so it's, I see like there's other ways to help also eliminate that trauma that the BIPOC community faces, just people who live under the state of capitalism face, just from that sheer alienation. So, Spanish translation is super important. I'm going to make a mental note of that one.
Yeah, we've been talking about that. We've been talking about that as well with like,
and ASL,
just making sure training and is, in multi-platforms, and that, especially with the healing, it's like we can't have only one certain type of person who speaks one type of language
Right.
offering healing. So that's a huge thing that we've been talking about is translation.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Just reading the
Well,
Yeah.
if there's anything else,
Any other questions from people in our group here with us, or
somebody said ASL too. People are like, they're giving us all kinds of.
That's something I've already been thinking in the works. Like, how can I add this to our YouTube streams? Because it would just be better instead of like having the YouTube auto captions or whatever, or like having to go back through and like transcribe the conversations that end up being like 2 hours long. Just have someone interpret the discussion as it goes on. That's how I would like to do it. And I have a friend who I could reach out to, but I don't know too many interpreters. Hey, and pay them well, definitely. That's such a skill. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. It's pay everybody. Pay everybody and it'll trickle back to you. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I'm all for giving people the full value of their labor, So you don't gotta worry about that from me.
You want a tip? Do what you need. Yeah, and if you can't pay them late, if you can't give them money, like I said, there's other ways to give besides money. There's the best things I received have not been finances.
Right.
That's for sure.
And to kind of talk a little bit about the society to anyone who might be watching, we do offer scholarships, and if you can come and just volunteer, to help facilitate. When we came up with a lot of this organizational structure, we were meeting in person and whatnot, so we could come and help facilitate an event, and just doing that one time takes care of your dues for a whole year, kind of thing. Like, there's so many ways to get involved. If you're a student, there's student discounts. We definitely don't want to make anybody feel like they can't be a part of our group. And so, like, that's, certainly why we wanted to have y'all come and talk with us tonight. But like, finances, we want to make, when we get back to teaching classes again, full on hands-on mushroom cultivation courses, we'll have plenty of ways to work on getting that education to people. But I really, really, really liked what you were saying about getting people access to gear, like hiking gear, but also cultivation gear. Cause we're trying to kind of facilitate, that be a community resource for people in that way. So I really, really liked that idea, and I'm going to definitely carry that forward in our organization process.
That'd be awesome. I think that's a big thing. And just take donate. People are clearing out their spring cleans coming up. You'll probably get so many donations. You'll have like 5 full setups to be like, here, and full tent setups with boots and everything. Like, that's not hard. Like, I have all these cooking things. It's like, we just have to get some boxes, and whenever, just have a place for it to go whenever. It's awesome. Yeah.
Oh man, my brain's racing with all sorts of good ideas for the local organizing we got going on around here. I'm excited.
Oh, that's me all the time. Yeah, for sure.
I think we were. Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank you guys again. I had a good time talking with Elan and just sharing these experiences. Just appreciate you. Appreciate you all.
Thank you again.
I really appreciate y'all wanting to come on and talk with us tonight. Like, I almost reached out kind of like in a panic, like, oh shit, I forgot to get someone on for the month. I know exactly who I need to talk to, who we need to get on. And I'm so glad you reached out to Elan, and it was such a fun conversation. I definitely want to have y'all come back on for more Myco hangouts, and have y'all come on and give presentations, do the during the lecture portion and everything. Like, anybody else who's affiliated with the POC Fungi community is totally welcome, on our platform anytime. And if you need help facilitating anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us too. So.
Awesome.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, cool. If there are, go ahead. Yeah.
Real quick. Yeah, I thought it'd be better to express it with my words than through the chat. But I just want to thank you guys, everybody who hosted this space. I shed a couple of tears as both of you guys are speaking. I'm also from San Diego. I'm currently living in New York, but I was just home like a few weeks ago. and I was out in the woods. I was in I think it was Cuyahoga with my brother. Yeah, and like we lived in Mexico. We moved to San Diego when we were little, so grew up like fairly poor. And we were talking about that, like how he's now 25, I'm 21, and how the privilege of being out in the woods, the privilege of literally having boots, like, and you guys were talking about the shoes, and that like automatically resonated with me. And it was funny because I took a little bit of mushrooms too, so I was just, you know, I mean, really just really thinking about obviously everything and connecting with the land, connecting with my brother. And the shoes were such a, I guess, like symbol. And I wanted to write about this because he was talking about it. As I was looking at his shoes, I was like, wow, like Cesar, that's my brother, like you have like shoes now. And thankfully he has like a stable job. But when we were kids, you know, it was like there was no money for shoes. We would go to the beach because that was like the easiest thing. You know, you didn't like need shoes, but it was just that of like skiing. Like I've never been skiing. Like what? Like when are you gonna see like some paisa skiing? Like you don't, you know, you don't see our people doing that. You don't see like that come. And now that like I'm grateful to be a college student and I'm studying biology, and like I really want to educate my people on that. And it was just so empowering to listen to you guys speak, especially on the fungi community, because even my parents are still a little bit like, oh, like what are you talking about mushrooms, you know? And I have this art piece on my arm of mushrooms, and they were like, well, what do you mean by that? I'm like, they're just magical, guys. Like they're so beautiful. And yeah, really, I just wanted to thank you guys because it was so healing to listen to more educated folks, older folks than I am, more experienced folks, to speak about this, because it is something that's important in our communities. You know, like it's the same struggle. The Black and brown struggle is the same struggle, but it's the same, you know, we didn't have that exposure to that. And it's so beautiful to see that now, and to see that with our communities and be able to have a dialogue about it. So from the bottom of my heart, I really thank you guys.
Thank you for saying that, Fernanda. You're why we do it, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Made me cry too.
Yeah, I feel right here. I'm like all in my feels. Thank you so much for sharing that. This is why. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Because I will get us off the YouTube and we can start to head on our way into the night.
Yeah.
Any more? Going once, going twice. Okay, I'm doing it because I have to use the restroom. All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone, on the YouTube, Facebook land. We'll catch you next time. Not next Thursday, but the Thursday after that, we're going to be having a lecture on Booker T. Washington, who was one of the leading mycologists when he was alive and doing his research. So he's one of the nation's leading mycologists during that time. George Washington Carver. Yeah, sorry.
Carver. Sorry, I didn't hear. I got you.
Yeah. George Washington Carver. Sorry.
Peanut Man.
Three things at once. Yeah, Peanut Man, but the Fungi Man too, which is I didn't know that until just recently. So we're gonna have someone from the New York City Botanical Gardens come and talk about him and his collection that they house there. So.
Very cool.
Look forward to it. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night, little light.
Good night. Much love.